Greetings and welcome back. Today I'm going to be doing a review of Wyrd Sisters by Terry Pratchett. So we'll start with the synopsis. 3 witches on a lonely heath. A king cruelly murdered. His throne usurped by his ambitious cousin. A child heir and the royal crown, both missing. The witches in Discworld don't typically deal with the royal depositions, since they're not ruled by a king. They do, however, have Granny Weatherwax, the most highly regarded non-leader of their non-social coven. But when the future of Discworld is at stake, Granny Weatherwax, Nanny Og, and Magra Garlic form an unlikely alliance to save the prince and restore him to the throne of Lancre. As they learn, though, it is far more complicated to stir up trouble in a castle than a certain bard would have it, even when you've got a few unexpected spells up your sleeve. So the basic plot is we've got King Varence. He's killed by the Duke Felmet, who's his cousin, and the Duke kills him so that Felmet can become the new king. And in there, some of the guards take the prince and the crown out of the castle to keep them safe from Felmet, and they happen upon the witches, and these witches take both the prince and the crown and hide them away. They sort of adopt out the prince to this band of traveling actors so that they can stay safe from the evil King Felmet now. Wyrd Sisters has such great satire, and it's got all the satire on royalty and all those expectations, and then on Shakespeare plays, and even just the expectations of what witches are and what they should be, and just sort of, derailing your expectations or just making fun of things that are typically done with each of those. But so, as always in Discworld, the satire is absolutely amazing. It's done so well. The book really has 3 parts. We've got the royalty aspect, we've got the actors and sort of the very Shakespeare satire, and then we've got the 3 witches. And they're all sort of on their own, and there's different ways that they sort of intertwine. And so with the royalty, there's this great quote that I like. We've got the Duke thinking about the difference between being a duke and a king, and how the Duchess is really the one running things and has him becoming king and things like that. And so he's thinking about all that. We've got this quote where he's talking about, he'd be just another local lord, with nothing much to do but hunt, drink, and exercise his droit de seigneur. And then there's a footnote that goes along with that, but I want to put in a little more explanation. So at first I didn't know what that meant. Didn't even know how to pronounce it. I read that, and then there's the footnote, and it has a great joke with it. And I was like, I feel like if I understood what this meant, the joke would be funnier. So I looked it up. It is. But it's really funny. It's actually sort of a recurring joke throughout the book. And the book never explains exactly what it is. And I won't either because it's a little mature. But look it up. It makes this joke a lot funnier. So we've got him talking about exercising his droit de seigneur. And then the footnote is, whatever that was, he'd never found anyone prepared to explain it to him. But it was definitely something a feudal lord ought to have. And he was pretty sure it needed regular exercise. He imagined it was some kind of large hairy dog. He was definitely going to get one and damn well exercise it. So throughout the book, they keep describing it as a dog, and obviously it's not. But it's very funny how they bring it up over and over again and sort of allude to it, but keep pretending it's a dog. It's really funny. So then we've got all the satire with the Shakespeare plays and just theater in general, and I've got one of my favorite quotes. It's where it's at the end, they're all watching the big play at the end, and Granny Weatherwax is thinking about theater. And so the quote is, the theater worried her. It had a magic of its own, one that didn't belong to her, one that wasn't in her control. It changed the world and said things were otherwise than they were. And it was worse than that. It was magic that didn't belong to magical people. It was commanded by ordinary people who didn't know the rules. They altered the world because it sounded better. And so I just really like that quote about theater and it being magic, but not actually from magical people, because you've got the witches and then them looking at sort of the magic of theater, and it was a really good quote and sort of a really good explanation of theater, because it's really funny as you go through the book. There's a couple of plays and Granny Weatherwax is there, and she doesn't get that it's fake, that there's suspended belief. She thinks everything's real, and there's a couple of very funny scenes with that, where they don't quite get the concept of theater, and so that's a fun satire bit. And so Wyrd Sisters has a great cast of characters, some of my favorites so far. So with the witches, we've got Granny Weatherwax, who is one of the older witches. She's very strict, she's grumpy, she's very set in her ways. She's very traditional witch, but because they've decided to come into a coven, we've got Granny Weatherwax, then we've got Nanny Og, who's very different than Granny Weatherwax. Nanny Og is very loud and boisterous and just silly. She has this big family. She spends a lot of her time drinking and smoking and singing lewd songs, and it's so much fun. She's probably my new favorite character from Discworld. So they kind of play off each other, with Granny being very strict and Nanny being very loud and boisterous. And then they've got the third member of the coven, which is Magret Garlic, who's a new witch. She's younger, she's sort of curious, she likes the newer idea of magic with wands and having all the incense and candles, and she has a very specific way that she's like, oh, this is magic, and it's very different to how Granny and Nanny kind of do their magic. So there's a little bit of butting heads with the three of them, but they all sort of work together to help with the issue with the fact that, we've got the Duke now, we've got Felmet in charge, but he's not a very good king, so they have to deal with that. And so we've got the Duke and the Duchess really is sort of the brains of the work. The Duke is just like, okay, I'm king now, and just kind of flummoxing, which is very funny. They're very referenced to, like, Macbeth and all that kind of thing. It's very interesting, because there's a lot of Shakespeare references as well. So we've got Hamlet and Macbeth and a few others, and so we've got the old King Varence, who ends up being a ghost because he's sort of made to haunt the castle until he's avenged. So you get a couple of scenes where him as a ghost and trying to deal with the fact of being a ghost, and it's very funny. And then we've got the Fool, who's actually secretly very smart, and he really doesn't like being a fool, but it's sort of his family trait, and so he's gone into it, and he's sort of battling with the being a fool but not liking what he does kind of thing, and he's a very interesting character. And then with the actors, we've got Tom John, who's actually the secret prince. He becomes one of the actors, and we've got Vitroller, who's the main actor, who adopts Tom John and is his father and is raising him. And he's a big and boisterous actor, and it's a very good portrayal of that sort of thing. Then we've got Hal, who's the writer, and he's very much an allegory for Shakespeare. He basically just is Discworld's Shakespeare. And he's really fun. I like him. And there's some really good quotes with Hal. There's one talking about inspiration and how he gets inspiration. One of my favorite quotes. Particles of raw inspiration sleet through the universe all the time. Every once in a while, one of them hits a receptive mind, but most of them miss. Most people go through their lives without being hit with even one. Some people are even more unfortunate. They get them all. So it's talking about how Hal just, gets all the inspiration and just, can't even filter through everything he gets to write. So he's just constantly writing and is lots of satire about Shakespeare and even other plays and things. And I noticed there was a small reference to basically Phantom of the Opera, and I know one of the other books, Masquerade, is basically just a satire of Phantom of the Opera, and I'm actually really excited to read that one because I used to be super obsessed with Phantom of the Opera, so I feel like Masquerade would be right down my alley, and I would just really enjoy the whole satire there. And I loved this book with all the satire and sort of the three elements we had. We've got the royalty, the actors, and the Shakespeare, and then the witches. And so all of the things going on with them and then how they all interacted, and the satire in Discworld is amazing. And everything comes together well, and the way the story is told is just so funny and so well done. And I absolutely love the format. And again, this was how Thief of Time was formatted, and I think this might be a trend throughout the Discworld, that there's no chapters, and it's just sort of scenes that bounce from sets of characters to other characters. And I really like the way it's written like that. So it's just this very continuous flowing story rather than chapter 1, chapter 2. It felt more cohesive than when you have chapters, and I feel like for Discworld it works very well. So Wyrd Sisters was just a really fun story, and the writing is amazing. It has some of my favorite lines. I realized trying to look up some quotes that I just end up quoting the entire book, so I won't do that, but it made me laugh out loud so much. It's so funny and so well written, dripping with satire and just all these fun references and sort of averting your expectations of things, and it's really fun. And like I said, it's a really fun sort of the three storylines with the witches, the royalty, and the actors, and they're sort of all doing their own thing, and then they come together and it all ties together, and it all worked out very well. So I would definitely recommend Wyrd Sisters. It's my new favorite Discworld. Again, I've only read 2, but I loved it even more than Thief of Time. I think anybody that enjoys the Discworld books, enjoys that type of writing, enjoys satire, and especially if you like anything to do with Shakespeare or royalty, or even just magic and ghosts, it really touches on all those, but it's very satirical in that. It's very very well done, and I would recommend it to anybody. Like all of Discworld, the writing is absolutely amazing, and it manages to be funny and philosophical at the same time. I always say that Discworld is like palatable philosophy. It's able to tell you a message while making you laugh. And it's so good. It's got such nuance to, again, get that sort of humor with the philosophy across and just balanced in just such an amazing way. So this is my new favorite book. So excited to read all the other books in the Witches series. I love these characters and just everything that they do. And I am just so excited to read even more Discworld. It keeps getting better the more I read, and I would really love to either join or start my own Discworld book club just so I could talk in length and discuss with other people all the minute elements of the Discworld books, because there's so much in there, and I feel like I'm going to have such fun even just rereading all these books. So I'm excited to get through all of them and reread them at the same time. So I hope this review helped give you some understanding of what Wyrd Sisters is about, and let me know if you've read it or if you're going to pick it up, what you're looking forward to. And as always, I hope you all have a wonderful day.